Our relationship to the land of Israel began with a promise in Torah. It was a promise between God and the Israelite people. 4 times in the Hebrew Bible, God said, "I will take you to be my people, and I will be your God." And God commanded Abraham to leave his birthplace and his father's house for a new land that God promised to show him. It was the land of Canaan, the promised land to which Moses would lead the people to enter and possess as an inheritance. That inheritance is ours to this very day. Since ancient times, in verified and recorded history and archaeology, it was lost and found, renewed and replenished, but never forgotten. Among the most memorable words in the Haggadah are in its closing exclamation, "Next year in Jerusalem." As Jews and Jewish allies, we are forever bound to the land and our people Israel, from its biblical origins to its contemporary realities. Today, this enduring promise sits heavily in our hearts and in our hands, because at this hour we're facing what scholars of history call a biblical moment. The fate of our people in the land of Israel are at a turning point. In a Sabbath prayer, we learn to ask, "We stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over?" This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? What lies before us is our Jewish imperative to preserve and deepen our Jewish identity and heritage. So on the first day of the Jewish New Year, we have to ask not if, but how. How will we preserve our people and our promised land? In 1897, Theodor Herzl, the father of political Zionism, addressed the World Zionist Congress in Basel, Switzerland. There he said, "Let everyone find out what Zionism really is, that it is a moral, lawful, humanitarian movement directed toward the long yearned-for goal of our people." The long yearned-for goal of our people began 2,000 years ago when the Roman legions destroyed the temple in Jerusalem and exiled the Jews from the territory. A second revolt was attempted by Bar Kokhba in 132 of the Common Era, and despite his claims to be a messianic figurehead bound to defeat the Romans, he was killed in battle. Rome's goal to erase the memory of the Jews in the region began with replacing Judah, the name of the region, with the ancient name Palestina, and finally Palestine. It was the name of the region. It was never a sovereign state. Though the Jews were exiled from the land, they never, for even a day, erased the memory of the land from their hopes and dreams. 2,000 years lapsed between exile and return, but there was never a day when Jews didn't live in the land. Then circumstances revealed the time when Jews, first inspired by Herzl and then driven by the destruction of European Jewry, came home to a land where they would choose their own destiny again. In 1948, Medinat Yisrael, the state of Israel, was born, set within boundaries established by the Balfour Declaration and approved by vote of the UN. And the next day, surrounding Arab nations attacked. They have been attacking ever since. But while they've been attacking, Israel has also been cultivating, developing, and inspiring what we have called a startup nation, while defending itself currently on 7 war fronts. Nothing short of a miracle has enabled them to withstand the pressures of war, social media, and Jew hatred. One of the most insidious war fronts is the effort to delegitimize Israel. What is meant by delegitimization. The delegitimization of Israel deprives Israel of its oxygen and questions its very right to exist. It's a war that's fought not on the ground, but on the internet and every public and private space on social media. It starts with denying the historical facts that the Jewish people are indigenous to their ancestral homeland. In Doron Spielman's book called When the Stones Speak, The Remarkable Discovery of the City of David and What Israel's Enemies Don't Want You to Know, he explains how even though Jews lived in the land for the last 3,500 years, Israel's enemies maintain that Jews are not indigenous to the land. How? How do they make this outrageous claim? In 2007, due to internal disagreements in the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights at the UN, the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples never became legally binding. What did emerge was a definition of the term non-dominance. The author wrote, "The idea of being non-dominant as a requirement for being indigenous meant that you had yet to realize self-determination. Therefore, if an indigenous group, such as the Jewish people, achieves self-determination, it will no longer be considered indigenous." And yes, the non-dominance clause is a kind of catch-22. The only native people to whom the United Nations denied indigenous status because they achieved full self-determination in their ancestral lands is the Jewish people. That's delegitimization. Another example is calling Israel a colonizing power. Who did they colonize? There was no nation before the British Mandate founded on the Balfour Declaration divided the territory into two potential states. Previously, Palestine had no government, no parliament, and no prime minister. In history, the land was ruled by the Romans, the Byzantines, the Ottomans, and the British. Some 50 years ago, Golda Meir, speaking in an interview about this outrageous claim of a Palestinian state, made clear that before Israel was a state, she too was a Jew from Palestine. She was a Palestinian Jew. And the Arabs who lived there were Palestinian Arabs, but not Palestinian nationals. Then as now, nothing but a land that is Judenrein, free of Jews, would satisfy our enemies who want to delegitimize Israel. Since 1948, wars and other conflicts between Israel and her enemies challenged Jews in Israel and in America to fight a war that was likely not going to win and build bridges with peoples who are unlikely to embrace them. In America, we often had choices too, whether or not to engage or depend on Israel's well-being for our own. But this biblical hour has changed everything. Israel is in the fight for its life, and Jew hatred and calls for global intifada have left American Jews and Israelis together more vulnerable than we've ever been since World War II. Yes, there are differences between the 1930s and now, but not enough to allow us to be complacent. We've learned the hard way never to take peace for granted. In our Reformed Jewish history in America, we have vacillated on Israel. Look no further than our own congregation. Up until 1948, Western American opportunities gave us all ample time to identify with Jewish values and ideals, to build the right Jewish life at home long before Zionism became a debatable issue for us. Only when Israel was at risk in 1967 and war broke out again did Beth Israel take its first turn towards Zionism with Rabbi Schachtel and temple leadership's approval. In 1975, Rabbi Karf, a Zionist at heart, inherited the congregation's past, and took careful steps to acculturate and educate its leadership on Israel. But too little about Israel was taught in religious school, and very few outward signs of celebrating Israel were visible. Our congregation's most public and outspoken turns turned towards a fixed position on pro-Zionism. It happened only some 20 years ago when I took this pulpit and brought us to our rightful place in Jewish life. We joined others who recognize Israel's historical claims and our identity as a people whose inheritance was more than the privilege to be an American Jew, because our greatest historical duty continues to be our God-given destiny and a land promised to our ancestors and to us. Now we amplify the full-throated voice of this proud Jewish congregation and community, where Jews have led in important circles of social and civic life. Our city thrives on its diversity, reflected in the cooperation of like-minded and reasonable peoples of faith who sit together at common tables. Rabbi Schachtel and Rabbi Karf were leaders in these developments, and I'm proud of our current clergy team for their roles to sustain them. Our city and the world as it was, as it is, and how it will be, needs to hear our voices. Chief among them must be clear Jewish voices to call out and prosecute Jew hatred, to prevent and call out global intifada, and to amplify our expectations for Israel's safe and secure borders with peace partners whose charters do not include the destruction of Jews and Israel, and the swift return of the remaining hostages in Gaza. In 1973, at another critical juncture of Jewish life, the General Assembly of Reformed Jews was gathered in New York City. Alexander Schindler, a great leader of the Reform movement, learned that Maurice Eisendrath, then president of the movement, died of a heart attack just before he was due to address the assembly. The shocking news was made public. Then Schindler, his heir apparent, delivered Eisendrath's speech word for word. His words chosen for that time and place still resonate with us today. Eisendrath wrote, and Schindler spoke, "The world needs Judaism. It's Menschlichkeit instead of the machismo of today's ubiquitous violence. It's optimism in the face of despair. It's Rachmanut, mercifulness, in the face of human callousness. It's reverence for the life of the mind and defiance of emotionalism run riot. It's love of learning and passion for justice. It's intoxicating toast, l'chaim, to life. It's hunger for peace as the apex of God's kingdom, and its partnership with God in setting the world aright." These words, Eisendrath's words, which are in a new book called Above All, We Are Jews, are the foundation of who we are as Jews in any time and place. This is the common thread that tethers us to our roots in Torah and covenant. At this biblical moment in Jewish history, these are the Jewish qualities that become our tools to address the world that rages at us in Israel and America. We all want peace and justice, but we can't easily export Western American values, let alone American Jewish values, to the Middle East, where almost nothing is like it is here. And for some who still lack a proper education about Israel and Jewish history, who are marching in the wrong parades, waving the wrong flags, and chanting the wrong words to fight a war that Israel never wanted, it's time to come together around Jewish common tables and listen. Has there ever been a time when the world needed more Menschlichkeit and less machismo? Diplomacy works when there are peace partners. In the absence of peace partners, peace comes after war, but not without humanity and not with bloodlust. It's vital that Israel bring home the hostages and win this war without also losing its soul. There's no people more optimistic than the Jewish people. In Israel and in America, despair is rare. Even the horrific loss of life of hostages brutally taken on October 7th is met with some relief that their pain is over, and in their name, the Jewish people will overcome. It's unbelievably inspiring. The light of Jewish hope burns even when it's flickering. Rahmanut, Rahmanis, mercifulness is compassion in the face of human callousness. Look across America and across the world. You'll find more than enough human callousness. In every instant, Jews abhor it. It's the indifference that Elie Wiesel warned us against because it violates our humanity. Don't let it infect you. Let it open hearts to the possibility for constant human improvement. And reverence and non-emotionalism is cherished because Judaism needs reason, science, and rationality to make space for faith's potential. God's gifts are Torah teachings that lead us to fashion a greater and life-affirming world. Jews love justice we call tzedakah. Wherever there's hunger, pain, and suffering, homelessness and aimlessness, there is no justice. After peace, we pursue justice every day. Tzedakah is a commandment to feed the hungry, ease pain and suffering, and welcome the stranger. Such deeds enable us to achieve the highest moral outcomes in service to humanity. And Judaism's intoxicating toast, l'chaim, to life, is central to who we are. Because when we fill our cup with wine, it's as the psalmist said, wine gladdens the soul. God's blessings are for joy and gladness. It's our outlook on life, and it keeps us forever looking up. The sum of all these parts is shalom, peace. It's the apex of God's realm. In partnership, we set the world aright as long as humanity cherishes the sweetest gifts that come with enduring peace. Change begins to be real when we master violence and defend the sovereign state of Israel. And it begins to be real when a new generation of Arabs, supported by a coalition of Arab nations, builds a state they call Palestine, or whatever they want to call it, alongside boundaries with Israel that remain guarded and peaceful. There is room for two peoples in one region, but it's not the same two-state solution of the past. Whatever nation is founded on Israel's borders must not include in its charter, as Hamas's does, to destroy the land and the people of Israel. This is a biblical moment when the Jews will not be exiled from its land again. But the last two kingdoms of Israel lasted only 70 to 80 years. The clock is ticking, and we have work to do. The work is not the destruction of another people for our sake. The work is the strengthening of our people for our sake. Some of us have been excellent students of Israel and Jewish history. Some of us have learned from our exceptional programs with scholars on Jewish life in Israel and America. We have armed ourselves with knowledge and supported Jews and Judaism at home and abroad. But we're losing an edge, and we can't afford to lose it. In recent weeks, I received emails from young professionals who are products of their generation. It means they were raised by us to cherish only Western values, probably too much tikkun olam, and not enough Jewish and Israel history. Now the devastation in Israel and Gaza, broadcast online and social media, has moved them to blame Israel and Jews for all of it. In effect, they blame themselves for being Jews who stand with Israel. One posted herself with a Palestinian flag on Facebook. One wrote me a screed by email. Thankfully, others wrote thoughtfully, but still expressed their disappointment that Jews and their rabbis believe what we believe. At times, I admit that I have felt exhausted by all of it. After all these years and all this time, and this is how far we've come, but I won't let it discourage me, and I don't want it to discourage you either. In my role as senior rabbi, as a Jewish leader in our city, and as president of the Central Conference of American Rabbis, I recognize this as a biblical moment. I call on you to pledge with me to embrace with all our heart and soul and might our responsibility as Jews to preserve Torah, to stand with Israel, and to uphold our duty to secure the rights and freedoms of other people, including innocent Palestinians who want to live side by side with Jews in their own land as peaceful neighbors. But we can't do any of that with people who are attacking us, who are aimed at destroying Jews, who are committed to the end of Israel, and who are false friends. In this biblical moment, we must see our way to a place and a time when Israel stands securely, when Jew hatred abates, and when our enemies turn their hearts towards peace, if not for us, then for themselves. On that day, our prayers will have been answered. Until that day, we will pray, we will work, we will learn and study, and we will stand together for our people. God, be with us in this hour of change. God, grant strength to our people and bless us with peace that comes after war in Israel and in all the lands our people call home. Ken yehi ratzon. May it be God's will. Amen. Thank you. A perfect time to ask you to rise.